Hello and welcome to our midweek conversation at First Baptist Sweetwater, where we strive to be the first responders of God's love. I'm here with my camp friend, Teak Hamilton. We have just returned from camp, and it's been a good week, and we're looking forward to the week ahead.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was thinking about it. One of the things at camp they did was they wanted to see how many sponsors have been there so long for working with youth and youth camp and stuff like that. Stacy, of course, won. I mean, she's been doing it a long time. But then I got thinking about it. You and I have been doing camp together. You, me, and Stacy together have been doing it since 2006.
Okay, good. So one of the things that came up at camp was I've been doing Horizon camps for 21 years.
Right.
I did add up my youth ministry years, and I'm not going to give you that number because even I can't believe how old that sounds.
Okay.
But because Kevin was there as our camp pastor, Kevin Boyd, and he had worked with me also, the fuzzy history started to be kind of come into view, and so we started talking about these different periods. So our hope is that we can put together a historical timeline.
Yeah.
So I know that we'll need you and Stacy, as you evidenced, to be a part of that.
I've got pictures. That'll help.
Time stamped?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
So
that's what the old cameras did. Remember the little Canon cameras that they're about that big, the cool pics?
I do remember
They
that.
had the little orange stamp at the bottom of the timestamp date and everything, and you couldn't figure out how to get it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a really good week at camp, and our church brought a really good group of kids and sponsors. So it was a good week.
Fun. Really good week. Had a lot of great life-changing moments that I was excited about. 5 kids ready to be baptized.
So one of the things you do in your student ministry is you don't go to camp with not knowing where some of these students are in that decision process, because you I mean, we've talked about this morning. Teak uses a form during the year where he clarifies that with students. Talk about those questions.
So during each semester I do questions like, where are you in your faith journey? Have you ever asked Jesus to be your Savior? What does that look like? And then have you done the next step, baptism? And then if they've done those two, what is the next step in your faith journey? So they're always moving forward in their understanding. And so that helps me clarify during that part of the year. And then when you get to camp, because you'll have kids who haven't ever been there before, we ask those questions again. And that helps us know how to pray for them. I always do the heads down, every head bowed, every eye closed. They put their heads down, they raise their hands for those questions. And then I've got the sponsors are looking around and they're writing down. And we tell them ahead of time, we're going to be watching because we want to know how to pray for you this week. And it gives us something to talk about as we go through the week. And crazily enough, if that's a word, none of those decisions happened during church group time. Right. They were all conversations during the day, after lunch or after breakfast or something.
Well, one of the things that I like about what you do there is that we know and we understand the role of camp, and you don't want to just not address things and then just show up at camp and then there's more pressure for a decision to be made. We're very intentional about that here in our student ministry and in the way we view camp. But also, I mean, you acknowledge that that's going to be one of those important steps probably in some way in that faith journey. And so those questions really become more naturally, and there's a familiarity that those students have with that.
Yeah.
And so probably some of the decisions that were finally breakthroughs have been, it's not your first conversation with them regarding that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that a lot of folks might not think about is that while it's common for students to go to camps and make decisions, including the one about following Christ, but never come back home and be baptized.
Right.
Because in student ministries today, not just ours, but most every student ministry in existence that I'm aware of, your greater attendance is in your midweek or your youth event, not in your Sunday morning.
Right.
And so for those students who may not have parents connected in this church or a Baptist church, it takes a little more effort, intentional effort, to see those decisions bear fruit. And so this is one of those years where we were talking this morning, in the time that I've been here as pastor and interim pastor now, this is probably the most decisions that we've had from any group that we've had.
Yeah, which is exciting. I talked to my grandma You know her from
Oh, right,
Pioneer.
yeah.
She's over there. And one of her biggest concerns when we talk is a church growing, and are they growing because of people moving in or because of faith decisions?
Right.
And she said, I want to see it growing because of faith decisions. And I'm like, I agree.
Yeah.
And so that's, I mean, we always want new people, but you want to see lives transformed, not just moving in.
Yeah. So it was, we podcast on Mondays. These drop on Wednesday, but so y'all got back here a little after lunch on Sunday. And
I got a nap.
And you got a nap.
It was a good nap. I went home, washed all the clothes, then took a nap.
Yeah.
And it felt good.
Well, it did feel good.
It was difficult. So last year, Robert Moore, our sponsor, and we would get up about 6:15, 6:30, shower, he'd go out and do his stuff, we'd come over and get coffee and everything, and then about 7:45 we'd come back by and have to wake the kids up because they would never get up. This year, first day, I'm just assuming it's going to be the same thing. We get up, and next thing I know, there's kids everywhere, and I'm going, what just happened? I forgot how nice it was. If they stay asleep a little bit longer, gives you time to get ready, get your coffee, and then you're ready for that morning and for them to wake up. But they were up, and they were good, showered a lot. I mean, it's always good to have a group that showers.
Yeah.
You like that. But no, it was fun. It was totally different from camp last year. It was just weird.
Yeah.
But it worked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about how our students were really into the week and a catalyst group. I think at this camp that was the largest group there, and
it was definitely the loudest. I know that.
They had all bought in.
Yeah, and it was fun to watch them out there. Even our kids who don't like sports that much were engaged in the recreation time, and ones you don't think would talk were wanting to answer first in church group time. Because in church group we ask 2 questions, and everybody has to answer. Where did you see God today? And you can only say at the rec field or at the Gaga pit one time during the week. After that, it has to be a little more thoughtful. And then what did you hear in worship over in the worship building? And then they talk about those 2 things. And we had kids raising their hands that you wouldn't expect to raise their hand to go first. Like, T, can I go first? And I'm like, let's do it. And they carrying their journals around, writing in them their answers. So that was cool.
Well, I think the thing I enjoy about student ministry so much is that you do get to see through camp, or even a lot of times through the activity of the church, you get to see something in a student that you wouldn't ordinarily get to see. And so it's kind of like you being there for the first steps.
Right.
And a lot of times you're not, but we get to see something in them that either they don't see in themselves or maybe their parents haven't seen in them yet. And so it's very rewarding to be able to be there and to see that begin to happen. And that's why I believe it's important for churches to invest in students in a student ministry.
Yeah, most definitely.
And definitely this church has a history of that. I mean,
I think so.
Even though, 14 years is a pretty long history for
That is true.
Your tenure, but even preceding that. In fact, a former youth minister from First Baptist Sweetwater was Kevin, our camp pastor's youth minister for a brief time.
Really?
Yeah, Kelly Wolverton.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I know he wasn't here long, I don't think, as youth minister, but Kevin knew several names that were identified with First Baptist. He knew Philip Cole.
Okay, yeah.
Through the conversations with Kelly Wolverton and so forth. So that was fun.
That's cool.
Connecting those dots through the years.
Kevin was awesome this week.
He was it
was his first time to do camp.
Yeah.
First time for us to have him especially, and did a great job connecting. I told you earlier that I really liked how he incorporated all the senses. That's hard to do from the stage, but I mean even smell, sound, things like that. When he talked about, if you listen real closely to a tree, you'll hear it groaning, fruit, and pointing out that you don't have to really work to do fruit. You just abide in Jesus, and He's the one who produces fruit through you. And I mean, just really cool because all the kids are leaning in. They're like, I've never heard a tree grown before. What? The apple tree's grown? And then he did that, and they're like, oh, okay.
Usually at that point in camp, I'm not tuned in, but I was, and he got me.
Me too. And I consider myself someone who cares about creation. I see it a lot, and I listen, I read, and I do that.
That might have been one of the best Bible illustrations that I've ever heard. It's John 15, right? Yeah. Abide in me, and I'll abide in you.
Branch in the vines.
Yeah. So, but no, it was a really good week, and now, we come back here, and we have preparation for another significant week in the life of our church.
Right.
And I'm not talking about boat races. I'm talking about. I didn't want you.
They did talk about this Sunday though, just so we know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's time to start talking about it.
I invited our friend Matthew Broyles over for it.
Oh, good.
And I think I said, you should come over for the cardboard boat races. He goes, oh, okay. And then he kind of stopped, and I was like, I'm serious. He's like, do you do that in your parking lot? No, we do it in the city pool. Cardboard in the pool? I was like, yep, it works every time. And so he might be coming. So
I will invite him.
Good.
Sharon and I are planning on coming over.
Excellent. So it's not that you were talking about.
And this time, it's not just for the hot dogs or hamburgers. It's for the boat races.
This time it's because it might actually work.
Well,
this time.
No, and I might even add, it's your antics. I mean, because it does make it worth the price of admission.
We've been, isn't it free? We've been collecting cardboard for a while now. Got my duct tape ordered, so we're gonna be good to go on that.
We meaning you and Stacy.
Right. Well, I think that sometimes Stacy goes, it's really teak. I'm just caught along for the ride whether I like it or not.
Right.
Literally in the boat. I need another person to paddle. But I think she was worried that it might not float at first. But if you know me at all, I really don't like getting in pools that often.
Yeah.
So, of course, I don't want to be in a sinking ship in a pool with everybody watching. And so, but I'm excited about it. It'll be fun.
Well,
but that's not what you were talking about?
Obviously, we've gotten off track. And so one last thing, hopefully, about the boat races.
Okay.
I do remember the day that you pitched the idea to me.
I did too.
And I
remember you rolling your eyes.
It didn't go well for you. I was skeptical. But you assured me, and it is one of my favorite things that we do.
I love it. And even Mr. Hopple at the pool, he emailed. No, I saw him at something. He said, "Y'all doing cardboard boat racing?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, good," and he's excited about it.
So before we get to that, we have P3.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite events we do all year long.
Yeah, and so I think part of that, my experience over here, our camp is always ended on Father's Day, and so we turn that corner, and we know there's a week countdown. I mean, you and Lisa will be talking about that, I'm sure, in the meeting tomorrow.
Right.
As all those things kind of finally, all those things fall into place, and then we get started with P3 Sunday.
Yes, I love P3 Sunday. It's commissioning. We really use that as time to pray over those. The leaders, the groups. You weren't at the church conference, but I had the leaders of P3 stand up, the directors. They all stood up, and then I said, now if you're working at one of these, stand up. Then I said, now if leaders look around, if there's someone still seated, they're fresh volunteers. The field's ripe for you to bring them into your group. And there were some others that stood up real quick. But it is cool to pray over those in the ministry they're going to have. I think you said it several weeks ago when you talked about the Great Commission. This is probably the best picture of our church for what it looks like to live out the Great Commission is P3.
Right, and I think particularly if people understand that Baptist churches typically do vacation Bible schools, and those, while that it's a great idea, I do prefer the idea of not asking children to come to be like you, with you, in your place, but let's go where they are.
Right.
And so it's a clearer picture of the Great Commission than Vacation Bible School. There, I said it. Right. So 2 weeks in a row. I think my time might be coming in.
No, it's
coming
all right.
to an end as a podcast host, as I offend people week in and week out.
The first year we did, I think the first year you were here, we had P3 and Vacation Bible School. No. So then leading into the first year, you said, why do we still do Vacation Bible School? It made us think about it. And so we started, and you're like, because it sounds like the same thing, so we don't have to do both of them. And we went with P3. Well, and that's been a change for, 8 years now?
Yeah. So we were meeting at that second coffee location. And as I was trying to find out, to learn about us, and so as y'all described it, I'm thinking that's got to be hard to have twice the resources, or you double the same resources for the same intent. And so I just asked the question, and the way I remember it was, Lisa said pretty quickly, well, we can cancel Vacation Bible School. And I remember going, wait a minute. I'm not ready for us to come in and start canceling things. Right. But from that point, we did have a good discussion about that. And y'all had already learned a lot about your summers, because when you began P3, you had 3 weeks. Was it 3 weeks?
Yeah, we had 3 different P3s.
And it was on different weeks, though, right?
One each month. 1 June, 1 July, 1 August.
Plus Vacation Bible School.
Right. And
you learned that you're gonna burn people out doing all that. So y'all backed off, changed your structure of it. So you do have to be careful with summers, with scheduling and so forth. And I think we have a really good rhythm here for the way that it's done, and high purpose for it as well.
Right.
So.
Well, I'll argue with anybody about Vacation Bible School versus P3 any day of the week. Because every time I tell the story of P3 to a church person who goes to church or used to Vacation Bible School, they get excited about it. And then I say, well, it's easy to reproduce.
Right.
Oh, well, we do Vacation Bible School. Well, you just told me that you got the same kids every year at VBS.
Well, and I think what was always interesting to me about the concept was when a lot of churches go on mission trips, and one of the things they do on mission trips is have backyard Bible clubs.
Right.
Because you can invite kids to that. And I'm going, yes, that makes really good sense.
Right.
So why don't we do that?
Right.
Well, that's what we do with P3. Yeah. But even during COVID, there were people that, because of those first COVID year after COVID, they did clubs because they were outside. They could create distance. And so I'm going to be honest, I was disappointed when I found out they just the next year, once the COVID protocols were off, they just went right back to what they were doing.
Right. Because COVID made the decision.
Yeah.
Not the church.
Yeah. So.
But it is a great picture of, and there are kids. There's one that we're having baptized this Sunday.
Oh yeah.
That we met through P3. Jacinda, one of our she worked in the office, came in through high school, middle school. One of our best students as far as servant, and he just really gets it. Met her at P3.
Yeah.
There are countless lives and families. Jacinda's mom still goes to church here. Countless lives and families that have been changed because of what we do out there, and might not have ever come through the doors for Vacation Bible School.
Exactly.
And so that's what I love about it. 4 locations all at the same time. And this week I was talking about it with someone at camp, and I don't remember who it was. We were talking about it, and they said, "Oh, so do you do?" They were asking about 4 different weeks, and I said, "No, we do them all in the same week." Well, how do you get that many people to sign up to help with that, to do 4 different places? Oh, are they different times of day? No, they're all same time, different locations. I said, but they don't take as much, because the mentality of VBS, Vacation Bible School, is you need a person for each class, probably 2 people. You need a music director. You need a pastor. I almost said camp pastor. You need all that other stuff. You need the snacks people, and you need all these people. But really, P3, it's been designed to operate with 8 people.
Right.
And half of those can be youth.
Right. I think that was the turning point, or one of the turning points in our leadership structure, is when you kind of came through with that model, which is really a mission, going on mission model.
Right.
Because it doesn't take a lot of people to facilitate it.
Right.
And so, anyways, it feels good to be back into adding a location. We were after COVID, we've only done 3. This is our first time to get back to doing 4. Right. And so real excited about it. Real strong leadership in each of those. So
I think next year we might do 8. We'll find out if Lisa watches the podcast or not pretty quickly.
So sometimes you have to drop a bomb on us to see if people listen all the way to the end.
And we'll see if she did or not.
Yeah. So if Lisa is not listening and you are, when you see her, tell her that you're really excited about having twice as many P3 locations next year.
I like it. It'll be fun.
Sounds good.
Then we'll know she got talked to.
And you don't have to come tell us, because we'll find out. Oh, listen, it's been great time thinking through all that's going on, and a little bit longer episode than normal, and we didn't cover everything. There's a lot of stuff that we're excited about. Thank Dr. Ken Lyle for filling in last Sunday. Yeah. Appreciate his capable leadership and mentorship for each of us. And we look forward to this Sunday, which is P3 Sunday, and hope that you can be there with us.
See you then.